I was standing in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting the pearl necklace my late husband gave me, when my phone buzzed sharply on the dresser. It was my lawyer, Martin. His text read only 4 words, "Call me. Now." My heart skipped. Martin was not a man of panic. He was calm, collected, the kind of lawyer who could talk a judge into changing his mind with just one raised eyebrow. For him to use capital letters? Something was wrong. Very wrong. I grabbed my phone and dialed. My hands trembled so much I almost dropped it. "Martin," I whispered. His voice was heavy. "Margaret, sit down." "I'm fine. Tell me," I said quickly, already scared. "It's about your new daughter-in-law, Emily." The room tilted. Emily. My son John's wife. The girl I had welcomed into my home like my own daughter. The woman who smiled sweetly, called me Mom, and insisted on bringing me homemade pies. Martin cleared his throat. She isn't who she says she is." I felt cold creep up my spine. "What do you mean?" "She's dangerous, Margaret," he said firmly. "And tonight, you cannot, under any circumstance, be alone with her." I froze, the necklace slipping from my fingers. "What has she done, Martin?" I asked, but my voice came out cracked. His words on the phone made my knees weaken so badly that I had to grab the dresser for support. And what he told me next, about Emily's past, shocked me so much, I thought my heart might stop. But before I could even process the horror, the front doorbell rang. Emily was already here. "My name is Margaret Turner. I'm 72 years old. And I live in the quiet town of Greenville, South Carolina. Before I dive fully into this story, I want you, my dear listeners, to do me a little favor. Please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next chapters of this unbelievable journey. And tell me, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I love knowing where my family of listeners are tuning in from. Now let me take you back to how all this started. 3 months ago, life felt calm. Too calm. My husband had passed away 6 years earlier, and my days were a rhythm of morning walks, knitting, and Sunday church. I kept busy, but my heart longed for family. So when my son John announced he was getting married, I thought God had finally given me a gift. John had been single for years, so when he said he met Emily at a business conference in Atlanta, I was thrilled. He described her as smart, kind, and hardworking. I could hear the excitement in his voice, something I hadn't heard since he was a boy showing me his first science project. "Mom, she's special," he said one evening over the phone. "You'll see." When I first met Emily, she swept me off my feet. She was beautiful, with big brown eyes and long chestnut hair. But it wasn't her looks that caught me, it was her charm. She hugged me tightly, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "I've been waiting to meet you, Mom." She called me Mom from day one. My heart melted. For weeks, Emily visited me often. She'd bring little gifts, a jar of homemade jam, a scarf she knitted herself, even fresh flowers. She said she wanted me to feel loved. And oh, how she laughed. Her laugh filled the room like sunshine. Everyone in town adored her. At church, people whispered, "John is lucky. That woman is pure gold." Even Pastor Richard said, "The Lord truly blessed your family with Emily." But sometimes, just sometimes, I noticed little things. Like how Emily's smile would vanish the moment she thought no one was looking. Or how she always avoided certain questions about her past. Whenever I asked about her family, she'd change the subject. She said her parents had died in a car accident, but she never showed me pictures, never spoke their names. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and found her staring at my silver cutlery set with an odd expression, almost calculating. When she noticed me, she laughed nervously and said she was just admiring how shiny they were. I brushed it off. After all, who was I to judge? Everyone grieves differently. But my lawyer Martin, he had his doubts from the start. Martin had handled all of my family's legal matters since my husband's death. He was protective of me, sometimes overly so. When he met Emily at the wedding rehearsal, I saw the suspicion in his eyes. He shook her hand politely but later whispered to me, "Something about her doesn't sit right." I laughed it off then. "You're being paranoid," I told him. "She's lovely." But Martin didn't let it go. And now, standing in my bedroom, hearing his urgent warning, I realized he had been right all along. The weeks before that call had been peaceful, even joyful. John and Emily moved into a big brick house on Maple Street. And Emily insisted I come over every Sunday for dinner. She said, "Family should always eat together." It made me so happy. For the first time since my husband's passing, my evenings didn't feel so lonely. Emily would cook elaborate meals, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, pies that tasted like heaven. She was the perfect hostess. But one night, something strange happened. After dinner, while John went upstairs to take a phone call, Emily leaned across the table and whispered, "Do you trust me, Mom?" I blinked. "Of course, dear. Why would you ask that?" Her smile was too sharp, almost like a knife. "Good. Because soon you'll have to." Before I could ask what she meant, John returned, and Emily's face softened back into that sweet, harmless mask. That moment haunted me. Now fast forward to that evening when I was getting ready for dinner. My hands were shaky as I picked up my phone again. Martin's words echoed in my ears. "She isn't who she says she is." But the doorbell was already ringing. My legs felt like lead as I walked toward the front door. Each step echoed like thunder in my chest. I reached for the handle, but my phone buzzed again. Another text from Martin lit up the screen. "Margaret, whatever you do not let her into the house." My heart slammed in my chest. Emily's sweet voice called from outside. "Mom? It's me. I brought you something special." And as I slowly opened the door, what I saw in her hands made me gasp so loud I almost screamed. There she stood on my porch, smiling sweetly in the golden glow of the porch light. Emily's hair fell neatly over her shoulders, her dress a soft cream color, like an angel's. But what she held in her hands nearly stopped my heart. It wasn't flowers. It wasn't a pie. It was a butcher's knife. The blade gleamed long and sharp, reflecting the light straight into my eyes. "Oh, don't look so frightened, Mom," Emily said with a chuckle, tilting her head like a child teasing. "It's just for carving the roast. I thought I'd bring it along so dinner is perfect." Her words were casual, but her grip on the handle was tight. Too tight. My breath caught in my throat. "Emily," I managed, forcing a smile. "That's thoughtful of you. But I have knives here. You didn't need to bring one." She stepped closer, her eyes sparkling in a way that made me shiver. "I just wanted to be sure everything is right for tonight. You deserve the best." Behind my back, my phone buzzed again. Martin's name lit the screen, but I didn't dare check it. Not with her standing right there, watching me like a hawk. I cleared my throat. "Why don't you put it down on the kitchen counter? I'll grab my purse and we'll head to dinner together." Emily's smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. Slowly, she stepped inside, the knife still in her hand. Her heels clicked against the wooden floor, sharp and deliberate. Every sound felt like a countdown. As she crossed the threshold, I thought of Martin's warning. Do not let her in. But it was too late. "Where's John?" I asked, trying to steady my voice. "Oh, he's waiting," Emily said, her tone almost sing-song. "But first I thought we could share a moment. Just you and me, Mom." My stomach nodded. I forced a little laugh. "Well, aren't you sweet? But you know I'm running late already. Maybe we should." She interrupted me, laying the knife on the counter with a metallic clang. Then she turned, placing both hands on my shoulders, her eyes boring into mine. "You really do trust me, don't you?" she whispered. I wanted to scream, to push her away. But instead I nodded, praying she wouldn't see through me. At that exact moment my phone buzzed again, louder this time because Martin was calling, not texting. The sound cut through the thick silence, making Emily's eyes flick toward it. "Who keeps calling you, Mom?" she asked softly, her smile now gone. Before I could answer, she reached out and snatched the phone from my hand. And the look on her face when she saw Martin's name flash across the screen wasn't sweet at all. It was pure cold fury. Emily's fingers tightened around my phone like a hawk clutching prey. The glow from the screen lit up her face, casting shadows that made her features look sharper, almost sinister. "Martin," she said slowly, her voice cool but edged like glass. "Why is your lawyer calling you at this hour?" My throat went dry. "Oh, Martin. He just checks in sometimes, about paperwork and such. Nothing serious." Her eyes narrowed. She didn't buy it. "Funny," she whispered. Because people don't usually get urgent calls from lawyers right before dinner. Unless there's something they shouldn't know about. I tried to keep my breathing steady, but my chest felt like it was caving in. Emily, please give me the phone back. It's private. She held it behind her back like a schoolgirl hiding a secret. What does he know about me, Mom? Her tone had changed. No more sweetness. No more sugary charm. It was cold now, demanding. I don't know what you mean, I said softly. Emily stepped closer, her eyes boring into mine. Don't play dumb. Someone's been talking about me. Someone's been digging where they shouldn't. I shook my head quickly. No, dear, of course not. But she didn't move. Her gaze stayed locked on me, searching, measuring. The silence between us grew so heavy that I thought I might faint. Then suddenly her smile returned. Just like that. Well, she said brightly, slipping the phone into her purse as if nothing had happened. I suppose it doesn't matter. Dinner's waiting. She brushed past me, humming a cheerful tune, as though the last 2 minutes hadn't happened. But my heart was hammering in my chest. My lawyer's warning echoed in my head. She's dangerous, Margaret. Do not be alone with her. And now here she was, in my house with my phone. I followed her into the kitchen, my mind racing. I had to get that phone back. I had to know what Martin had discovered. Emily set the knife on the counter again, and leaned against it casually, smiling at me. You know, Mom, you're lucky. Not everyone gets along with their mother-in-law. But we're close, aren't we? Like real family. Yes, I said, forcing a smile. Of course we are. Good. She tilted her head. Because family protects each other. And family doesn't keep secrets. Her words felt like a knife pressed to my throat. The drive to John and Emily's house later that evening was suffocating. She insisted we take her car. I wanted desperately to drive myself, but she waved away my protests. Don't worry, Mom, she said sweetly, opening the passenger door for me. You just relax. I'll take care of everything. The knife was still in her bag, and so was my phone. I sat stiffly in the seat, staring out the window as the streets blurred past. My mind screamed at me to jump out, to run, to call Martin somehow. But I didn't dare. Emily's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were white. At one red light, she turned to me suddenly. Do you believe people can change, Mom? I hesitated. Well, yes, I suppose so. With God's help. Her lips curled into a smile, but it wasn't a kind one. Maybe. But some people. She tapped her nails against the wheel. Some people can never really escape who they are. Before I could respond, the light turned green and she pressed the gas hard, jerking the car forward. My heart jumped into my throat. When we arrived at the house, John greeted us warmly at the door. Mom, you made it. He hugged me tightly, then kissed Emily on the cheek. Dinner's almost ready. Emily's smile was as sweet as ever. You'd never guess what had just happened in my kitchen. John didn't notice a thing. As we sat down at the dining table, Emily bustled around, setting plates, pouring wine. She laughed, she teased John. She even asked me about my knitting projects. It was as if she had put on a mask again. But every so often she glanced at me with that sharp, knowing look. A silent warning. I forced myself to eat, though each bite felt like gravel in my mouth. My eyes darted to her bag, sitting innocently on the sideboard. Inside it I knew was my phone and that knife. Halfway through dinner, John excused himself to take a call upstairs. The moment his footsteps faded, the room grew unbearably quiet. Emily set down her fork, folded her hands and leaned across the table toward me. You know, she said softly, it's really better if Martin minds his own business. Lawyers have a way of sticking their noses where they don't belong. And when they do, bad things happen. My fork clattered against my plate. She smiled. Don't look so scared, Mom. I wouldn't hurt you. You're family. Her words should have been comforting. But they weren't. Not when her hand slowly reached into her bag under the table. I held my breath. Then bang. A loud crash came from the kitchen. Something or someone had knocked over a pan. Emily froze, her eyes snapping toward the sound. Stay here, she whispered, standing quickly. Her hand slid deeper into her bag. I sat rigid in my chair, my heart pounding like a drum. And then I heard it. A man's voice, low and urgent, coming from the kitchen. "Mrs. Turner, it's Martin. Don't say a word." Emily's heels clicked sharply against the wooden floor as she walked toward the kitchen. I sat frozen in my chair, my breath caught in my chest. Martin's voice had been barely above a whisper, but Emily's ears were sharp. She stopped in the doorway, her hand still buried in her bag. "Who's there?" she called, her tone sing-song but laced with steel. For a second, silence. Then the faint creak of a floorboard. Emily's smile vanished. She stepped into the kitchen, her body tense like a cat ready to pounce. I wanted to scream a warning, but fear locked my throat. From my seat, I heard Martin's voice again. Calmer now, louder. "Emily. It's me. Martin Green. Margaret's lawyer." A pause. Then Emily's laugh rang out, cold and sharp. "Well, isn't this interesting?" she said. "The famous lawyer himself. Sneaking into my kitchen like a thief." Martin's tone was steady, but I heard the edge in it. "I came here to protect Margaret. From you." Emily gasped dramatically. "Protect her? From me?" She clutched her chest in mock horror. "Why, Martin, I adore her. She's like the mother I never had." I could picture her smirk without even seeing her face. Martin didn't budge. "Drop whatever's in that bag, Emily. I know what you've done. I know about your past. And I won't let you hurt her, or John." The air grew thick with tension. My fingers dug into the tablecloth, twisting it until my knuckles hurt. Then came a sound that made my blood run cold. The metallic scrape of the knife being pulled from her bag. Emily's voice dropped low. "If you really knew me, Martin, you'd know threats don't scare me." I could barely breathe. The kitchen felt miles away, yet every sound echoed through the dining room like thunder. Suddenly there was a crash. A chair toppled. A grunt. The sharp clink of steel against tile. My heart leapt into my throat. "Martin!" I cried out, finally finding my voice. No answer. Just the sound of a struggle, the shuffling of feet, the slam of a cabinet door, a muffled cry. I pushed myself up, stumbling toward the kitchen, but before I could take 2 steps, Emily appeared in the doorway. Her hair was wild, her eyes blazing. The knife gleamed in her hand, and on her cheek was a fresh streak of blood. She smiled at me, wide and unsettling. "Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. "He shouldn't have come here. Now we'll have to deal with him together." My knees weakened as Emily stepped closer, the knife flashing under the dining light. Behind her I caught a glimpse. Martin slumped against the counter, his shirt torn, blood staining his sleeve. "Emily, stop this," I pleaded, my voice shaking. "You don't have to do this. Think of John." Her laugh was soft, almost childlike. "Oh, I am thinking of him. He deserves the truth, and tonight, he'll see who really protects him." She raised the knife higher, her hand trembling not with fear, but with anticipation. And then John's footsteps thundered down the stairs. John's footsteps thundered against the stairs, each step louder than the last. My heart slammed in my chest. Emily's knife hovered in the air, her eyes wild, her chest rising and falling like a storm contained inside her thin frame. Then he appeared, my son, my only child, standing in the doorway in his crisp shirt, confusion etched across his face. "Emily? Mom? What's going on here?" Emily's hand trembled, but the smile on her lips didn't falter. She lowered the knife slightly, turning to face him with a sweetness that could have fooled anyone. "Oh, John," she said softly, almost cooing. "Your mother's lawyer, he startled me. He just barged into our home. I didn't know what he was doing here." John's eyes flicked past her to Martin, slumped against the counter, blood soaking through his sleeve. His face drained of color. "Martin? What happened?" Martin groaned faintly, clutching his arm. Emily's voice sliced through his like a blade. "He fell, John. He tried to grab me, and he fell. I didn't know what to do. Look, I panicked." Her voice cracked in all the right places, tears welling up in her eyes like she had practiced it 1,000 times. But I knew the truth. I saw the knife, still clutched in her hand, gleaming with menace. "John, listen to me," I said quickly, my voice shaking. "Martin's here because he needed to warn us. About her." Emily gasped, spinning toward me, her face a mask of betrayal. "Mom, how could you say that?" She turned back to John, tears spilling over now. I've done everything to be good to you both, and she hates me. She's turning you against me." Her voice broke, and she crumpled to the floor, sobbing. John's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, torn between us, his eyes darting from Emily's trembling frame to Martin's bleeding arm to my pale, desperate face. "Mom," he said slowly, "are you saying Emily hurt him?" I swallowed hard. My whole body was trembling, but I forced the words out. "Yes, John. She's not who she says she is. Martin tried to tell me. He said she was dangerous. Look at him. Do you think he just fell?" Emily's sobs grew louder. She covered her face with her hands, rocking back and forth. "How could you believe that? After everything, John, after everything I've given you." The room was heavy with silence, broken only by her weeping. John bent down beside her, pulling her hands gently away from her face. "Emily, tell me the truth," he whispered. Her tear-streaked cheeks glistened as she gazed up at him, and in that moment something terrifying flickered in her eyes, so quick I almost doubted I saw it. A flash of triumph. "Of course it's not true," she whispered, her voice low and sweet. "I love you. I would never hurt anyone." John hesitated. His hand hovered over hers. His love for her, his loyalty was fighting with the evidence bleeding before his very eyes. I stepped forward. "John, look at her hand. The knife." He turned. Emily still gripped it tightly, though she tried to hide it against her dress. His face hardened. "Emily, put it down." For the first time her smile wavered. "Why?" she asked softly. "Don't you trust me?" The same words she had whispered to me at the dining table came back like poison. "Do you trust me, Mom?" John straightened. "Put it down. Now." Emily's shoulders rose and fell. Slowly she set the knife on the floor. But her eyes never left mine. Martin groaned again, clutching his arm. I rushed to him, kneeling at his side. His skin was pale, his breathing shallow. "It's just a cut," he muttered, but his voice was weak. "She's dangerous, Margaret. Don't let her." Before he could finish, Emily shrieked. The sound pierced the air like glass shattering. She lunged suddenly, grabbing the knife again, faster than any of us could react. "No!" I screamed. John moved in an instant, throwing himself between her and Martin. The knife sliced across his arm, drawing a bright line of blood. He cried out in pain but managed to shove her back. Emily stumbled, then straightened, panting, her eyes blazing now with no pretense, no mask. The sweet, innocent daughter-in-law was gone. "You ruined everything," she screamed, her voice hoarse. "I gave you my love, my loyalty, and you all betrayed me." John clutched his arm, his face twisted in pain. But his eyes were clear now, finally seeing her for who she was. "Emily," he said, his voice low, steady. "Whatever this is, it's over." Her chest heaved. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, with a sudden burst of movement, she darted toward the back door. "Emily, stop!" John shouted, stumbling after her. But she was fast, too fast. She flung the door open and disappeared into the night. The sound of her heels striking the pavement echoed in my ears long after the door slammed shut. John collapsed to his knees, clutching his arm. Martin leaned heavily against me, his face pale. My whole body shook. We were alive. But Emily was gone. And something told me she wasn't done with us yet. That night, long after the ambulance had taken Martin to the hospital and John's wound had been bandaged, I sat alone in my bedroom, staring at the shadows on the walls. My phone had been recovered from Emily's bag, and on it a new message waited. Sent just an hour ago, while chaos raged in the kitchen. It was from an unknown number. The message read, "You should have trusted me, Mom. Next time, you won't get a warning." My blood ran cold. I knew then, this nightmare was only beginning. Sleep didn't come to me that night. Every creak of the old house, every whisper of wind against the shutters, felt like her footsteps coming back. Emily's words echoed in my mind. "Next time, you won't get a warning." I sat up in bed, clutching the phone as if it were a lifeline. My hands were cold, my stomach tied in knots. The next morning, John sat at my kitchen table, his arm wrapped in fresh bandages. His face looked older, wearier. He hadn't slept either. "She fooled me, Mom," he said quietly, staring into his coffee. "All this time, I thought she was my future. My family. I reached across the table, resting my hand on his. John, she fooled all of us. Don't blame yourself. Some people wear masks so well, we don't see the monster until it's too late. His jaw tightened. We have to stop her. Before she hurts anyone else. Martin called later from the hospital. His voice was weak, but his resolve was strong. Margaret, he said. I found out more. Emily isn't her real name. She's been married before twice. Both husbands died under suspicious circumstances. My blood ran cold. What? She changes her name, her story, every few years. Moves to a new town, finds someone new, and the cycle begins again. Your son wasn't her first target. But we might be her last, if we're not careful. As he spoke, a shiver ran down my spine. I thought back to Emily's words on our first dinner together. Do you trust me? Now I understood. It wasn't a question. It was a test. By evening, the police had been notified, but Emily was nowhere to be found. The officers assured us they'd track her down, but something inside me knew she wouldn't be caught so easily. She was too clever, too calculating. John tried to be strong, but I saw the fear in his eyes. He double-checked the locks, pulled the curtains tight, even left the porch light on. But fear has a way of slipping through cracks no lock can seal. Around midnight, I woke to a sound, soft, deliberate tapping on my bedroom window. Tap, tap, tap. My chest tightened. I sat up slowly, holding my breath. The curtains swayed gently with the night breeze. Tap. This time louder. I crept toward the window, every step heavy as stone. My hands shook as I pulled the curtain back. And there she was. Emily. Her face was pressed against the glass, her eyes wide and unblinking. Her lips curled into a smile that made my blood freeze. In her hand, she held a scrap of paper, pressed against the pane. The words scrawled in jagged handwriting read, "Family stays together forever." I gasped and stumbled back. By the time John burst into my room, Emily was gone. The window pane was empty, the night silent again. But the paper was still there, stuck to the glass. John ripped it down, his face pale. She was here. She's watching us. I clutched his arm, my knees weak. John, I whispered, my voice breaking. She won't stop until she destroys us. And in the pit of my stomach, I knew the next move wouldn't just be against me. It would be against my son. The note trembled in John's hands as though it were alive, its jagged words burning into our eyes. Family stays together, forever. He crushed the paper into his fist and stormed to the kitchen, his face taut with anger. That's it. We're not sitting here waiting for her to strike. I'm going to the police station myself. They need to know she's here. John, wait, I said, following him. She's playing with us. Don't you see? She wants to pull you out into the open. She wants you angry. That's how she wins. But my son was stubborn, just like his father had been. His eyes blazed with a mixture of rage and shame. Mom, I let her into our lives. I brought her here. And now she's threatening you. I won't forgive myself if something happens to you because of me. His words cut through me. My brave boy, trying to protect me when he was the one in danger. I grabbed his arm. John, please. Promise me you won't go after her alone. He didn't answer. He just kissed my forehead and walked out the door. The slam echoed through the house like a gunshot. Hours crawled by. I sat by the window, clutching my rosary beads, whispering prayers into the still night air. Every shadow outside seemed to move, every branch against the glass sounded like footsteps. Then at 2 a.m. the phone rang. I lunged for it, my heart pounding. John. But it wasn't my son. It was Emily. Her voice was low, smooth as silk. You shouldn't have let him leave, Mom. The streets are so dark at night. Anything could happen. My blood turned to ice. Where is he? What have you done to him? She giggled softly, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. Relax. He's alive. For now. But tell me, how much is he worth to you? Tears stung my eyes. Don't you dare touch him, Emily. He's your husband. Was, she corrected coldly. He was useful, yes. But he betrayed me. You both did. And betrayal has consequences. Her words were poison in my ear. Please, I whispered, my voice breaking. Don't hurt him. Take me instead. Silence. Then a slow, chilling laugh. Oh, don't worry, Mom. You'll get your turn. The line went dead. My knees gave way, and I sank to the floor, clutching the phone as sobs racked my chest. At dawn, there was a knock on the door. My hands trembled as I opened it, praying to see John. But it wasn't him. It was Officer Daniels, a kind-faced policeman from our church. His hat was in his hands, his expression grave. Mrs. Turner, he said gently, we found your son's car abandoned near the old mill road. The driver's side door was open. No sign of John. The world spun around me. My vision blurred. He's missing, I whispered. Daniels nodded. We'll do everything we can to find him. But I need you to be prepared. Whoever this woman is, she knows what she's doing. My legs nearly gave out. The officer guided me to a chair, but my mind was already spiraling. Emily had him. My boy was out there. Alone, trapped, maybe hurt. And it was all my fault. That night I couldn't sit still. I paced the floor, my eyes darting to the windows, the doors, the shadows that seemed to creep closer with each passing hour. At midnight, another message buzzed on my phone. It was a photo. John. He was tied to a chair in a dimly lit room. His head bowed, blood streaking his cheek. His wedding ring still glinted on his finger. A cruel reminder of the woman who had betrayed him. Beneath the photo were words. Choose, Mom. Him or you. Tomorrow night. Midnight. The mill. The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto the floor. My whole body shook with terror. Emily had set the trap. And I knew I would walk into it no matter the cost. Because there was no choice. He was my son. The next day passed in a blur. I tried to eat, but food turned to ash in my mouth. I tried to pray, but the words stuck in my throat. All I could see was that photo of John. All I could hear was Emily's voice whispering, family stays together. Forever. Martin called from the hospital. His voice was weak but urgent. Margaret, don't go alone. She wants to lure you in. Let the police handle it. But I couldn't let strangers decide my son's fate. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself standing before the mirror once again. Just like the night this nightmare began. My reflection looked back at me. An old woman, weary and broken but still a mother. And a mother would face hell itself to save her child. I slipped my rosary into my pocket, kissed my husband's photo and whispered, watch over us tonight. Then with shaking hands I reached for my coat. The clock ticked toward midnight. The mill awaited. And somewhere inside, my son's life hung by a thread. When I stepped outside, the air was cold and heavy, the moon casting pale light over the empty streets. Each step toward the mill felt like walking deeper into a grave. The old building loomed in the distance, its windows shattered, its walls scarred with time. My footsteps echoed on the cracked pavement as I drew closer. The front door creaked open before I touched it. Emily stood there, smiling. The knife glinted in her hand. Welcome, Mom, she whispered. I knew you'd come. And behind her, in the shadows, I saw John. He lifted his head slowly, his swollen eyes meeting mine. Mom, he croaked. Before I could rush to him, Emily raised the knife high. This is where family stays together, she hissed. And then she lunged. The knife's silver edge flashed under the moonlight as Emily lunged. My scream tore through the empty mill, echoing against the rusted walls. But John, even bound to the chair, jerked sideways with all his strength. The knife missed his chest by inches, scraping his arm instead. Stop! I cried, rushing forward. Emily whirled toward me, her eyes blazing. This is your fault, Mom. You made him doubt me. You poisoned him against me. Her words sliced deeper than the knife ever could. But I stood tall, forcing my shaking body not to crumble. No, Emily. You did this to yourself. Love built on lies can't last. Her face twisted, half fury, half grief. Lies, she spat. I gave him everything. And you? She jabbed the knife toward me. You just couldn't let me have him. I backed away slowly, my eyes darting to John. His wrists bled where the ropes dug in, but he was tugging hard, fighting against the knots. If I could keep her talking, maybe he could break free. Emily, I said softly, taking a careful step closer, you don't have to do this. Put the knife down. Walk away. You're young. You still have a chance to change. For the briefest moment, her hand wavered. Her chest heaved, her eyes wet. Then she shook her head violently. No, she hissed. People don't change. That's what you told me once, isn't it? You said some people can never escape who they are. Well, this is who I am. She lunged again, the blade slicing through the air toward me. I stumbled back, my foot catching on a loose plank. Pain shot up my leg as I fell hard onto the floor. The knife came down. But then a crash thundered through the mill. The side door burst open. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Police! Drop the weapon! Emily froze, her chest rising and falling rapidly, the knife shaking in her hand. John shouted hoarsely, "Over here!" Officers stormed in, their voices commanding, their guns drawn. For a moment, I thought Emily might surrender. Her eyes darted between me, John, and the flashing beams of light. Then, with a sharp scream, she raised the knife high again, and the officers fired. The sound was deafening, ringing through the hollow mill. Emily's body jerked, her eyes wide with shock. The knife clattered to the floor. She collapsed in a heap, her blood spreading slowly across the dusty ground. The silence that followed was unbearable. John's ropes were cut loose. He stumbled into my arms, shaking, crying, his body warm and alive against mine. "It's over, Mom," he whispered, his voice broken. "It's finally over." But as I looked at Emily's lifeless form, a chill crept through me. Because deep down I wasn't sure it was. The mill was quiet except for the sound of John's sobs and my ragged breathing. Dust hung heavy in the air, stirred by the commotion, and the faint metallic smell of blood lingered where Emily's body lay sprawled on the ground. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Officer Daniels asked, his flashlight beam moving from me to Emily. I nodded shakily, though my knees felt as though they would buckle any second. John clung to me, his face buried in my shoulder like a child again. For a moment I was back in the days when he would scrape his knee running outside, and I'd gather him up, whispering that everything was going to be okay. But this time the wound wasn't on his skin, it was in his soul. Emily's body was carefully covered with a dark sheet, and the officers began documenting the scene. One officer retrieved the knife, bagging it with gloved hands. Another crouched near where John had been tied, studying the ropes, the chair, the marks on the floor. I sat with my son, stroking his hair, whispering comfort into his ear. "It's over, John. She can't hurt us anymore." But in my heart, I wasn't so sure. By dawn, we were back home. The police insisted on keeping us under watch for the night, but the silence in my house felt heavier than any danger outside. John sat at the table, his hands wrapped in bandages, staring blankly at the wall. "Do you want me to make you something? Tea, maybe?" I asked gently. He didn't answer right away. His lips parted, but no sound came. Finally he whispered, "I loved her, Mom. Even after everything, some part of me still does." "What does that make me?" I reached for his hand, squeezing it. "It makes you human. Love doesn't disappear just because someone turns out different than you thought. Don't hate yourself for that. Hate what she did, not the part of your heart that cared." Tears welled in his eyes, but he nodded. He leaned forward, resting his head on the table, and for the first time since this nightmare began, he fell into a restless sleep. I watched him, my chest aching. Emily had nearly destroyed my son, and though she was gone, the scars she left would not vanish so easily. I thought that was the end of it. But I was wrong. 2 days later, Officer Daniels returned. His face was grave as he set a small evidence bag on my coffee table. Inside was a black leather journal, its cover worn and scratched. "We found this in Emily's apartment," he explained. "It looks like she kept detailed notes about, well, everything." I leaned closer, my pulse quickening. "Everything?" He nodded. "Her marriages, her plans, even your family." She wrote down names, dates, habits. "It's disturbing." He hesitated, then added, "There's something else. It seems Emily wasn't working alone." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" He tapped the bag. "She mentioned a man. No name, just initials, DC. She called him her partner. Said he was the one who taught her everything." My breath caught in my throat. Partner. Emily hadn't been acting alone. Daniel's voice was firm. We're still investigating. But Mrs. Turner, you and your son need to stay alert. If this man is real, he may come looking for you. After he left, I sat staring at that journal. The words partner and taught her everything burning in my mind. Emily was dead, yes, but what if she was only part of something larger? That night, curiosity gnawed at me until I couldn't resist. I carefully opened the journal. Her handwriting was sharp and erratic, the ink pressed deep into the paper as though carved by anger itself. One page read, DC says the trick is trust. Get them to believe you die for them, and they'll never see the knife until it's in their back. Another page. The mother is watching too closely. Must find a way to separate them. DC warned me. Never underestimate mothers. My blood ran cold. She had written about me. About my suspicion. About my love for John being her greatest obstacle. I flipped further. The last entries were rushed, almost frantic. He's growing suspicious. DC won't be pleased. Must silence her soon. And the final chilling line. If I fail, DC will finish it. I slammed the book shut, my hands trembling. Finish it. That meant Emily's death wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The following morning, John noticed the journal on the table. What's that? He asked. I hesitated. Should I show him? Or would it only deepen his wounds? But secrets had nearly destroyed us once. I couldn't make the same mistake again. It's Emily's, I said softly. The police found it. She wasn't working alone, John. His eyes widened. What do you mean? I handed him the journal. He flipped through it quickly, his face pale. DC, he muttered. Who is that? I don't know. But whoever he is, he might come for us. He shook his head, shoving the journal away. No. I can't do this anymore, Mom. I can't live in fear of a ghost. Emily's gone. That's the end of it. But I saw the way his hands shook. He was afraid, terrified. Even if he wouldn't admit it. That night, the fear became real. I woke to the sound of footsteps outside the house. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. I froze in bed, straining to listen. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps against the front door. I crept down the hall, my heart pounding. John was already awake, standing in the living room with a baseball bat clutched in his hands. His eyes met mine, wide, fearful. The knock came again. We stood there, frozen, neither of us daring to move. Finally, a low voice called from the other side of the door. Margaret. John. Open up. I think we should talk. The sound of that voice was like ice water poured down my spine. Deep, smooth, calculated. And though I had never heard it before, I knew instantly who it was. I grabbed John's arm, whispering, Don't open it. No matter what. The voice chuckled softly. Come now. Don't be rude. Emily may have failed, but I never do. John tightened his grip on the bat. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone. But before I could dial, the front door handle began to turn slowly. Click. Click. He was trying to come inside. I mouthed to John, run to the back. But my son shook his head. No. Mom. We end this. Tonight. The door creaked as the lock gave way. And then, the door swung open. A tall figure stepped inside, his face hidden in the shadows, his presence filling the room with dread. He smiled coldly. Hello, Margaret, he said. Your son looks just like his father. My heart stopped. He knew us. The man filled the doorway like a shadow come to life. Tall, broad-shouldered, his presence carried a quiet menace that made my skin crawl. His eyes glinted in the dim light, sharp and watchful, the eyes of someone who never lost control. John lifted the bat, his knuckles white. Who are you? He demanded, though his voice shook. The man smirked. Didn't Emily tell you? I'm the one who made her who she was. She was my student. My creation. My stomach twisted. Creation? Emily had been dangerous enough on her own. What kind of man had shaped her? You're DC, I whispered. He tilted his head, amused. So she talked about me. Good. Then you know what happens when someone crosses me. John stepped forward, anger flashing through his fear. You stay away from my mother. DC laughed softly, a chilling sound. Protective, aren't you? Just like your father. But protection is weakness. Emily learned that. She was meant to take you both down, but she let her heart get in the way. That's why she failed. He took another step inside, closing the door behind him with deliberate calm. The click of the lock echoed through the room. I grabbed John's arm. Don't, John. He wants you angry. DC's smile widened. Smart woman. You saw through Emily quicker than I expected. I should have come for you first. He reached into his coat and pulled out a long black knife. The blade gleamed under the light, and I felt the air leave my lungs. John raised the bat higher. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. For the first time, DC's smile faded. His eyes narrowed, his voice cold. Then so be it. He lunged forward with terrifying speed. The knife flashed, the bat swung, and the sound of steel colliding with wood cracked through the house. I screamed as my son staggered back, the knife grazing his arm. Blood blossomed instantly through his sleeve. John, I cried, rushing forward. But DC turned his gaze on me, his eyes burning with something darker than hatred. This ends tonight, he said. And he came at me. Time slowed. I saw the gleam of the knife, the cold determination in DC's eyes, the sheer power in his stride as he came straight for me. My body moved before my mind could catch up. I grabbed the nearest thing within reach, the heavy lamp from the side table, and swung with all my strength. The lamp shattered against his arm. Glass flew everywhere. DC grunted but didn't stop. The knife's edge nicked my cheek as I stumbled back, my heart hammering. Run, Mom! John shouted. His bat raised again despite the blood soaking through his sleeve. No! I cried. I'm not leaving you. DC laughed, low and cruel. Beautiful. A family that dies together. He lunged again. John swung the bat, striking DC hard in the ribs. The man staggered but didn't fall. He turned on John like a predator locking onto prey. I grabbed a shard of broken glass from the floor, clutching it tight until it cut into my palm. My breath came in gasps. Fear screamed in my veins, but love drove me forward. Leave him alone, I shouted, thrusting the shard at DC's back. It sliced through his coat, grazing his shoulder. He roared, spinning toward me, his knife raised. His face twisted into something inhuman. Big mistake, old woman. Before he could strike, John slammed into him, tackling him to the ground. They crashed into the coffee table, splinters flying. The bat rolled away. I watched in horror as DC, stronger, heavier, rolled John beneath him. The knife hovered inches from my son's throat, pressing closer, closer. No! I screamed. I threw myself onto DC's back, clawing, pulling, anything to distract him. My nails raked his skin, my fists pounded against him. He snarled, jerking backward, and I felt the knife slash across my arm. Pain burned hot, but I didn't let go. Mom, move! John shouted, straining against DC's weight. With a desperate kick, John managed to twist, sending the knife clattering across the floor. For a moment, hope surged. But DC was relentless. He slammed John's head against the floor, stunning him. My son went limp, groaning. Terror flooded me. I scrambled toward the knife, crawling across the broken glass. My fingers stretched, shaking, reaching. DC yanked me back by my hair. Pain ripped through my scalp as he dragged me across the floor. His breath was hot against my ear as he hissed. You should have stayed out of this, Margaret. He raised his fist, ready to strike. But then a sound cut through the chaos. Sirens. DC froze, his head snapping toward the window where red and blue lights flickered in the distance. John stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Police, he groaned. For the first time, fear flickered in DC's eyes. He released me, shoving me hard to the floor, and lunged for the back door. No! I screamed, scrambling to my feet. You won't get away. I grabbed the knife before he could. The weight of it felt wrong, heavy, but I clutched it tight. My whole body shook as I raised it. DC stopped at the door and turned. Our eyes locked. His lips curled into a slow, mocking smile. This isn't over, he said softly. I always finish what I start. And then with terrifying speed, he bolted into the night, disappearing into the darkness just as the police burst through the front door. Mrs. Turner! Officer Daniels shouted, rushing toward me. Are you hurt? I collapsed into his arms, the knife slipping from my bloody hand. Get him, I sobbed. Please, don't let him get away. Officers spread out, chasing into the night, their radios crackling. But deep down I knew. DC was too smart, too careful. He wouldn't be caught so easily. John staggered to his feet, leaning against the wall, his face pale. Mom, he whispered, his voice trembling. He'll come back. He won't stop. I wrapped my arms around him, holding him close despite the pain in my body. My blood stained his shirt, his blood stained mine, but all I cared was that we were alive for now. Outside, the sirens faded as the police search spread wider. But inside, the silence was deafening. Emily had been a storm. But DC? DC was a hurricane. And he was still out there. Watching. Waiting. Planning. I held John tighter, whispering through tears. We'll be ready next time. We have to be. But in the pit of my soul, fear whispered another truth. No matter how ready we thought we were, nothing could prepare us for what was coming. The house felt like a tomb after the police left. Broken glass still glittered on the floor. Blood still stained the carpet. But the silence was worse than the mess. John sat slumped on the couch, his head bandaged, his eyes distant. He'll come back, he murmured. You saw his face. He won't quit until one of us is dead. I squeezed his hand, forcing my voice to stay steady. Then we won't give him the chance. The police are watching. We'll be safe. But even as I said it, doubt gnawed at me. I knew the type of man DC was. Emily had been clever, manipulative, but this man? He was patient, calculating. He'd wait for the moment we let our guard down. That moment came sooner than I expected. The first sign was small. A letter slipped under the front door the following morning. I spotted it while sweeping up the broken glass. My heart skipped as I bent to pick it up. The envelope was plain, unmarked, but inside was a single sheet of paper. In bold, neat handwriting it read, You think you survived. You didn't. You're just living on borrowed time. I crumpled it in my fist, my hands shaking. John grabbed it from me, his face pale as he read the words. It's him. He's toying with us. He stormed toward the door, ready to rush outside, but I caught his arm. Don't. That's what he wants. You out in the open. His chest heaved with anger, but after a moment he dropped the paper, his hands trembling. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak, every rustle outside set my nerves on edge. At 3 a.m., I heard the faintest scrape against the living room window. I crept toward it, my heart hammering. On the glass, drawn in something red, were 3 words. Not finished yet. I stumbled back, gasping. By the time I yanked the curtains open, the yard was empty. But the message remained. The next day, John was restless, pacing the house like a caged animal. We can't just sit here waiting, he said. We need to leave, Mom. Go somewhere he can't find us. And what if he follows? I asked softly. What if he drags us into another town, another nightmare? Running won't stop him. He pressed his hands to his face. Then what do we do? Wait until he finally decides to kill us? I didn't have an answer. For the first time in my life, I felt utterly powerless. That evening, Officer Daniels visited again. His face was drawn, his voice heavy. We've searched every lead. Nothing. It's like he vanished into thin air. John laughed bitterly. He didn't vanish. He's right here, breathing down our necks. Daniels lowered his voice. I don't want to scare you, but men like him don't give up. Be cautious. Triple check your locks. And if anything happens, anything at all, call me. We promised we would. But deep down, I knew no lock could keep out a man like DC. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at Emily's journal. Her words echoed. If I fail, DC will finish it. The truth struck me like lightning. This wasn't just about revenge. DC wasn't here for random violence. He was here to finish what Emily started. He wanted John. And if I wasn't careful, I would lose my son forever. As the clock struck midnight, the phone rang. I picked it up with trembling hands. Silence. Then that smooth, chilling voice. Margaret, did you like my message? My throat went dry. Leave us alone. He chuckled softly. No. Not until you understand. Emily was weak. She fell for him. But me? I don't fall. I take. And when I take, I never give back. My tears burned hot as they rolled down my cheeks. You'll never have my son. The line went quiet for a moment. Then he whispered, I already do. And the phone went dead. I froze, staring at the receiver in horror. Upstairs, the floor creaked. John was supposed to be asleep. But what if the sound wasn't him? I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy frying pan, and crept toward the stairs, my breath shallow, my heart in my throat. Another creak. Louder this time. John. I whispered. No answer. Step by step I climbed, the shadows thick around me. At the top, John's bedroom door was open. The sheets were rumpled, the bed empty. And on the pillow lay another note. This one read, He's mine now. The note trembled in my hands. He's mine now. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. John! I screamed, my voice cracking as I ran through the upstairs hallway. I checked every room, every corner. Empty. The house that had once felt like a haven now felt like a hollow trap. I bolted back down the stairs, calling his name over and over. Nothing. Just silence. The front door was locked, bolted from the inside. The windows were latched. How had DC gotten in? How had he taken my son without a sound? The phone rang. I froze. Slowly, I picked it up, my hand trembling so violently I nearly dropped it. Margaret, the voice purred. Calm. Smooth. Icy. Where is he? I screamed into the receiver. What have you done with my son? DC chuckled. A sound that slithered through my veins. Relax. He's alive. For now. But tell me, how far will you go to get him back? I'll do anything. I whispered, my chest heaving. Just don't hurt him. Anything, he repeated, savoring the word. Good. Because I don't just want your son. I want you broken. I want you begging. You monster. I hissed, tears streaming down my face. He ignored me. I'll give you a clue. Your boy is somewhere you know well. Somewhere that smells of dust and echoes. Find him before sunrise, or you'll only find his body. The line clicked dead. I collapsed to the floor, clutching the phone against my chest. My spoon. Dust and echoes. The mill. Of course. He was taunting me, dragging me back to the very place this nightmare had erupted. I didn't call the police this time. Some instinct told me DC wanted me to. And if I did, John would pay the price. No. This time it was between me and him. The drive to the mill was a blur. My knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. The journal resting on the passenger seat beside me like a curse. The night was too quiet, the moon too bright. Every shadow along the road felt alive, watching, waiting. When I pulled up, the building loomed in the dark like a tombstone. The wind whistled through its broken windows. I clutched the frying pan I had grabbed from the kitchen, the only weapon I could think of, and whispered a prayer under my breath. God, give me strength. Don't let me lose my son. The door creaked open under my hand. Inside, the air was heavy with dust, just as DC had said. My footsteps echoed as I moved deeper into the belly of the mill. John, called softly. Baby, it's Mom. Answer me. My voice came back to me, bouncing off the walls. But no reply. Then faintly a muffled cry. I froze, my heart leaping. John. The sound came again from deeper inside. I ran toward it, tripping over broken boards, my breath ragged. At last I reached the far corner, and there he was. John sat tied to a chair, his head hanging forward, a rag stuffed in his mouth. His wrists were bound so tightly I could see blood seeping through. His eyes fluttered open when he saw me. Mom, he tried to say, but the gag muffled his voice. I rushed forward, yanking at the ropes, sobbing. It's okay, sweetheart. I've got you. I've got you. But before I could free him, a voice slithered out of the shadows. Beautiful, isn't it? I spun around, my chest seizing. DC stepped into the light. Calm, composed, his knife glinting in his hand. His smile was slow, deliberate. A mother's love. It makes people weak. Emily never understood how to sever it. But I do. I clutched the frying pan, holding it like a shield. If you touch him, I swear. You'll what? He interrupted smoothly. Hit me with your pan? Beg. Cry? You've already done those things. And still here we are. I forced myself to stand taller, though my knees shook. You don't know me, DC. You think you're in control, but you're not. You'll never break us. His smile faded into a sneer. We'll see. He lunged. I swung the frying pan with all my strength. The sound of metal meeting metal rang through the mill as it struck his knife hand. The blade clattered to the ground. John thrashed in his chair, shouting through the gag. DC roared, grabbing my wrist and twisting it painfully until I dropped the pan. His face was inches from mine, his breath hot, his eyes burning with rage. You should have died with Emily, he hissed. Then suddenly John managed to topple the chair sideways, crashing into DC's legs. The man stumbled, releasing me. I dove for the knife, my fingers closing around its handle. For the first time in my life, I held a weapon with the intent to use it. My hands shook, my breath ragged. Stay back, I gasped, holding the blade between us. DC straightened, his lips curling into a cold smile. Go on, Margaret. Prove me right. Show your boy that love turns to blood. He took one slow step closer, daring me. My grip tightened. The knife trembled in my hand. Behind me, John shouted through his gag, desperate, his voice raw. And then, DC lunged again. The knife shook in my hands as DC lunged forward, his shadow swallowing the light. In that instant, time slowed. I thought of everything. Emily's betrayal, the endless nights of fear, the broken glass, the threatening notes. But above all, I thought of John. I couldn't lose him. Not to her. Not to this monster. With every ounce of strength left in me, I thrust the knife forward. It sank into DC's shoulder, just inches from his throat. His roar of pain echoed through the mill as he staggered back, clutching the wound. His eyes blazed with fury and disbelief. You, he spat, his teeth gritted. You dare? I didn't hesitate. I swung the frying pan, my other weapon, with a scream that tore from my soul. The pan connected with his head, sending him crashing to the floor. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. My own ragged breathing was the only sound. Then John groaned. I dropped the pan and rushed to him, tearing at the ropes until his arms were free. He ripped the gag from his mouth, coughing. Mom, he gasped, his eyes wide. Behind you. Eastbourne. DC was rising again, staggering, blood dripping from his shoulder, his eyes wild. He was like a beast who refused to die. He lunged for me once more, rage giving him unnatural strength. But John was faster. With his freed hands, he grabbed the frying pan and swung with all his might. The sound of iron colliding with skull was sickening. DC collapsed. This time he didn't move. I knelt, pressing my trembling fingers to his neck. Nothing. The monster was gone. For a long moment I simply knelt there, my hands shaking, my breath uneven. Then I turned to my son. It's over, I whispered. It's finally over. John wrapped his arms around me, and I held him as tightly as I could, refusing to let go. The police arrived shortly after, alerted by a passerby who had heard the noise from the mill. Officer Daniel's face was grim when he saw DC's body, but there was relief too. You did what you had to do, he said softly. Men like him don't stop until someone stops them. I nodded, though my heart still ached. I hadn't wanted to take a life, but I had no choice. To protect John, I would have done it 100 times over. They took DC away, and for the first time in weeks, I felt the heavy weight of fear lift from my chest. In the days that followed, John and I worked to heal. The scars, his on his arm, mine on my heart, would never fully fade, but we had each other. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip low, John turned to me. You saved me, Mom. I don't know how to thank you. Tears filled my eyes. I cupped his face gently. You don't need to thank me, baby. A mother's love doesn't ask for thanks. It just is. He smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. And for that moment, everything was right in the world. And so, my dear viewers, that is the end of my story. My name is Margaret, I am 72 years old and I live in Texas. If you've been with me since the beginning of this journey, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please subscribe, like, and click the notification button, so you don't miss the next stories I'll share with you. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching from? I love hearing your answers. This was not just a story of terror and survival. It was a reminder. Life will throw monsters at you in many forms. Some wear smiles, some carry knives. But courage, love, and faith will always be stronger. Because in the end, evil only wins if we let it.